Good evening. Welcome to the first Village Council meeting of October 2022. As is our custom, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rosa, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Barnett,
Here.
Commissioner Jose,
Here.
Commissioner Wallace,
Here.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit. Here. Commissioner Cullivaney,
Here.
Commissioner Gilmartin,
Here.
Commissioner Glover.
Here.
Welcome, everybody. Good to see you all tonight. Item 3 on our agenda is proclamations. We have 2 this evening. They both concern village services. Please, as we've talked about in the past, please hold and do not put up any applause. We'll just appreciate each other by reading the proclamations. We're going to read 2 of them first and then ask Stan to come up and get them both. National Code Compliance Month. Whereas code enforcement officers provide for the safety, health, and welfare of citizens living in communities throughout the United States through the enforcement of building, zoning, housing, environmental, property maintenance, and other codes and ordinances. Whereas code enforcement officers are dedicated, well-trained, and highly responsible individuals who take their jobs seriously and are committed to promoting life safety and improving neighborhood aesthetics in the course of their daily jobs. Whereas building relationships and knowledge of the community is an integral part of a proactive and professional code enforcement approach. Whereas effective and professional code enforcement officers can have a major impact on the property values, the image of our community, the quality of life of our residents, as well as shaping the community's understanding of local government and the municipal experience. Whereas October is set aside to honor and recognize code enforcement officers as an opportunity to highlight the contributions these individuals have made to the quality of our community. Whereas many valuable contributions are made by code enforcement officers throughout our country. Now therefore, I, Robert T. Barnett, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim October 2022 as National Code Compliance Month in the Village of Downers Grove, and extend thanks on behalf of our community for the commitment of our code enforcement officers to public service. Dated this 4th day of October 2022, Downers Grove, Illinois. Very much related, this is also Community Planning Month. Whereas change is constant and affects all communities, whereas community planning and plans can help manage this change in a way that provides better choices for how people work and live. Whereas community planning provides an opportunity for all residents to be meaningfully involved in making choices that determine the future of their community. Whereas achieving the full benefits of planning requires public officials and citizens who understand, engage, support, and demand excellence in planning and plan implementation. Whereas the month of October is designated as National Community Planning Month throughout the United States and its territories. Whereas we recognize the many valuable contributions made by the professional community and regional planners of the Village of Downers Grove, and extend our heartfelt thanks for the continued commitment to public service by these professionals. Now therefore, I, Robert T. Barnett, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2022 as Community Planning Month in the Village of Downers Grove, in conjunction with the celebration of National Community Planning Month, dated this 4th day of October 2022 at Downers Grove, Illinois. I'm going to ask our Community Development Director, Stan Popovich, to come up and accept these 2 proclamations.
You just tilt them forward, please. There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Item 5 on our agenda, minutes of previous council meetings. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move that the council adopt the September 20th, 2022 minutes as presented.
Second.
Any comments or questions from the council? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item 6, is there a motion concerning the consent agenda?
Mayor, I move that the council adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That too passes unanimously.
Mayor, if we could,
Yes.
perhaps it'd be appropriate to consider item 4 on the agenda?
You know, that would be a really good idea, Dave. So on my first night up here, I think I did something similar. So the truth is, I apparently am not trainable. We have two very important presentations tonight, and I glossed right over them, and I'm sorry for that. One has to do with Economic Development Corporation, and the other has to do with downtown management. And it's pretty embarrassing to sit up here and skim over two really important partner organizations. But I did it anyway. So with that, Economic Development Corporation, our newest team member is here tonight. Brian, welcome. I'm so sorry.
No
The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mayor, Village Board members. It's really an honor and a privilege to be with you here. My first Village Board presentation, my first quarterly, my first still technically month on the job. So tonight, I really just wanted to just kind of give some brief comments, go over a couple of key indicators that we had presented out over the last month. Not a whole lot has changed since we provided our last monthly KPI report to the board and publicly. So I'll make reference to that, and then we'll just kind of go over a few things there. But to start, for those of you that I may not have met, I believe I have met everybody, and for those members of our residents in the audience, my name is Brian Gay, President and CEO of the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation. I am a Darien resident, so working right in my backyard is on a bad day, it's 7 minutes to work, which is really nice. On a bad day, it's like 11 and a half. So it's just really thrilling to be working, doing what I love in my backyard, in my adopted community. Darien does not have a downtown area, and so my wife and I, over the last 7 years, really kind of adopted Downers Grove. So just, again, what an honor and a privilege to be here. Before I came here to Downers Grove, I was president and CEO of Invest Aurora, the city's public-private economic development agency. Before that, I worked for the Illinois Department of Commerce for 4 years, and before that was Choose DuPage. So economic development, again, has become a passion, something that I kind of stumbled on somewhat by accident out of school, went back, graduated from the University of Oklahoma's Economic Development Institute, and now I've been doing this for 17 years. So just really exciting to kind of be here and to kind of keep the positive economic development momentum happening here and contributing to it here in Downers Grove. Real quick, just to, as we get started here, this organization, it's just a kind of a real, just my ability to just kind of jump into kind of work and not really have to worry about our relationship with the village, which is very strong. And then through the organization, it's just really been a great comfort to me. So again, it's Downers Grove really understands economic development, and over the last 11 years under Michael Cass's leadership, and then before that with Greg Bedeloff, both a friend and someone I've previously worked with in both cases. Again, it's just great. So we are really just jumping into the deep end of the pool here and getting going. Over the next few months here, we're going to be picking up kind of right where we left off here. Starting up later on this month, I'll be presenting at the Illinois Real Estate Journal for their DuPage and Western Suburbs Summit. I'll be also teaching a course at the Illinois Basic Economic Development course for NICOR that brings economic development professionals from across the state and really the Midwest. So we'll be kind of teaching them some of the tips and tricks of economic development. Our staff, Lisa, will be attending the Illinois Governor's Conference on Tourism in December, and then some of the events that you typically have seen and that we'll be bringing back later on this year and early next is our annual broker event. We're scheduling that for the first or second week of November, and then we'll have our holiday party, which is scheduled right now for December 1st, and then of course the big event that everybody looks forward to is the DG EDC luncheon, tentatively scheduled for first quarter of next year. So please keep an eye open for those. You all receive invites, and we look forward to seeing you all there. So to just kind of jump in here real quick with the KPIs, again, this will be a little bit more abbreviated than what you're typically used to, but these are key performance indicators that the DGEDC board, as well as the village board and staff, really kind of worked together over the last 2 years to really kind of identify and to be able to track positive economic development in the village of Downers Grove. So as I had mentioned, we did post our monthly KPIs for this month of September. You can find those at the dgedc.com under our data center, and we didn't really want to go over those today because they really haven't changed much in the last 2 weeks since we've had those. So jumping into our quarterly indicators. So this is going to be something new that you're going to see. This is not something we've typically done through the DGEDC. That is a monthly and a quarterly report on projects that we have. So I bring in a little bit different twist to it, and throughout my career, we've always identified projects based on the community, based on, again, what we view as positive economic development growth. So going forward, we're going to be identifying projects that are 25,000 square feet of space occupied, creating at least 25 new jobs, and $1 million of private investment. A project to qualify needs to qualify for at least 2 of those 3 criteria. So over the last quarter, what have we seen here in Downers Grove? We've seen 6 projects. These are both retail as well as commercial office, and then also 1 industrial space. And due to those, with those projects, they contributed about $21.5 million of private investment into the local economy. Going forward, then some of those bigger macro numbers here, our unemployment rate, as we see, continues to trend down, which is a great thing for us. It also, though, means that we continue to have a shrinking workforce, and again, it's going to get a little bit tighter, so those jobs are going to get a little bit more competitive. But again, good things for us here in Downers Grove, and as well as in the county. We can see month to month downward trend for that, as well as year over year. So. Then also going into some of the more numbers that you're used to, those commercial occupancy rates. So we still continue to trend in those low 90 occupancy rates. So really good for us compared to the rest of DuPage County from a commercial office standpoint. We're right there in the ballgame where we should be. As you can kind of see, we've seen that kind of trickle down, over the last 4 or 5 years. Industrial occupancy rate, much like the rest of the I-88 and suburban corridor here, we continue to be in the about 5.5% vacancy rate, or in this case, occupancy rate of about 94.5%. So again, right where we should be, and I expect as newer spaces come online and things get upgraded, we'll continue to see those numbers go down. Office occupancy rate, so again, about average for where we're at, actually doing a little bit better from that standpoint. 85% here occupied in Downers Grove, whereas the rest of DuPage County and the east-west commercial corridor we're about 20% vacancy rate. So. And that's all I have for this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks,
Great.
Brian.
Thank you so much.
Where do you get the numbers from?
So the Downers Grove EDC, we subscribe to a number of different publications and online listings, primarily for the commercial rates, vacancy rates, and those things. Those all come from CoStar. And then the Illinois Department of Employment Security for unemployment data.
Thanks, Brian.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Before we go on to Aaron here at Downtown Management, Aaron, welcome. Just a reminder to everybody, if you've got questions, save them for the public comments portion of the meeting, address them to the council, we'll get them answered and get them out to you. Aaron, come on down. I'm so sorry about that awkward introduction. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Erin Venezia, and I'm the Executive Director for Downtown Downers Grove Management Corporation. Downtown Downers Grove is home to approximately 280 businesses. Of those, approximately 117 are potential first-floor retail spaces. Our first-floor occupancy rate is approximately 98%. We currently have 1 first-floor space currently available for lease. and another one that is vacant but is being remodeled before being available for lease. In the past year, downtown Downers Grove welcomed 18 new businesses: Allure Skin Spa, Applebee's Prep, Baby Bound Ultrasound, Balanced Approach Counseling, Dr. Diva Aesthetics, Dooley Physical Therapy, Ellie Mental Health, Empire Health and Wellness, Enclave, Hinsdale Orthopedics, Kumon Math and Reading Center, Leffelman Meat Center, Mint Nail Studio, Mudrun Cane Insurance, Salon Tango, Schutte Trade Law, The Paper Peony, and Yoga 6. We've also had 5 businesses expand their businesses within the downtown into new spaces: Dive Heart Outreach Center, Evelyn Jane Boutique, Gianna Lauren Lashes and Beauty, Orchid Heart Boutique and Creative Studio, and Skin Med Spa. We will soon welcome Ghostlight Theater at 923 Curtis, The Pound Cake Bakery at 5228 Main Street, and Solana Aesthetics at 5143 Mogul Drive. Our office has hosted 18 events and promotions throughout the past year: the Pumpkin Scavenger Hunt, Halloween window painting, trick-or-treating, Small Business Weekend, Gingerbread House Contest, Gingerbread Man Hunt, Candy Cane Cash Reward Program, Visits with Santa, Merry Madness, Ice Fest, Wine Walk, the Bunny Scavenger Hunt, Sidewalk Sale, Loyal to Local, Fine Arts Festival, and Girls Day Out. The car show also did return in partnership with the Moose Lodge. We also reintroduced holiday caroling within the downtown, and more than 100 children from many community groups, such as Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and Brownies, spread holiday cheer throughout the downtown. For Halloween, we partnered with the Downers Grove Rotary Club for the Halloween window painting. There was a great turnout with more than 800 new paint sets handed out, as well as the paint sets handed out that were recycled from previous use earlier in the morning. We also hosted the downtown trick-or-treating, and more than 40 businesses handed out candy, and approximately 1,500 pieces of candy were handed out at the businesses. We kicked off the holidays last year with Small Business Weekend, the weekend after Thanksgiving. We will continue that format this year. We'll also host Santa in his gingerbread house at Main and Curtis, and carriage rides will also return that weekend. We'll be reaching out shortly to the groups to see if they would like to carol again in the downtown this year. Santa handed out just over 1,500 candy canes throughout his holiday season stay here in the downtown. We hosted our 10th annual Gingerbread House Contest with 2 divisions, the Business Division and the Family/Group Division. We had 25 beautiful entries between the 2 divisions on display in the businesses' windows throughout the downtown. We continued the Candy Cane Cash Reward Program throughout the holiday season. Our office reinvested nearly $2,000 in downtown gift certificates through this program to be used at participating businesses through the end of February. The program will return this holiday season as we had positive feedback from businesses and community members. In February, we hosted the Ice Festival. We held live carvings on both Saturday and Sunday. We had 58 beautiful ice sculptures that were pre-purchased lining the streets, sponsored by businesses, families, and different community organizations. This was the most sculptures we have had pre-purchased. The Ice Festival is planned to return February 3rd through the 5th, 2023. Over spring break, we promoted staycation education and the Easter Bunny Scavenger Hunt. The Wine Walk returned this past spring. We had 350 participants this year, and the event sold out within days. This event is great for people to find new-to-them businesses, and it's great exposure for the businesses and a fun evening for community members. Memorial Day weekend through Labor Day weekend, the car show returned, reinvented with a partnership with the Moose Lodge. The Moose Cruise Night ran every Friday night, except for the Friday of Grove Fest and 4th of July weekend, as we have done in years past. Our office provided the live entertainment at the Main Street train station. This encouraged the foot traffic to flow on both sides of the tracks. When the weather was good, both were well attended. This past June, we introduced a new Support Local program, Loyal to Local. For every $10 spent at a participating business, you received a stamp. Once you spent $100, you turned your card into the business. Each week, we drew for downtown gift certificates, for a total of $1,200 in downtown gift certificates distributed to be reinvested back into our downtown. We added a grand prize basket to be drawn at the end of the program. Our office purchased a $25 gift card from participating businesses, and they could choose to match or exceed the amount, or leave it at $25. The grand prize basket had nearly $1,000 in gift certificates to 28 different downtown businesses. We had more than 1,100 entries from approximately 70 different zip codes. The community loved this and was excited about it. The sidewalk sale was held in July and had 24 participating businesses and was very well supported by the community. September 10th to the 11th, we held the Fine Arts Festival. This year we had 34 artists that were accepted and displayed. 2019, we had 46 artists, so we're hoping next year that we'll be back at the 2019 numbers or better. The weather was phenomenal on Saturday, and the event was well attended. Sunday was a different story. We had a huge rainstorm. Most artists left. 12 artists did decide to stick out for the majority of the day. Those that stuck around did have some sales. Thank you to Mayor Barnett for taking time out of his busy day to present the awards to our 3 winners. Our fall coupon book began to hit mailboxes September 12th. This mailer features 20 downtown businesses and is mailed to 23,000 households in 10 different zip codes. Downtown management covers a little more than 50% of the cost to make this an affordable piece for our businesses. We do carry a handful of extras in our office if you'd like one while supplies last. Ladies' Day Out this year was held on September 29th. We again partnered with the Downers Grove Area Elementary School PTAs. The businesses donate 10% of all hall passes purchases back to the participating elementary school PTAs. The school with the best attendance, which is tallied by hall passes turned in with their school name on them, receives an extra $250 donation, and the second and third place schools receive $100 in downtown gift certificates to use as they please. We are still tallying that final donation. This holiday season, we will again work with Laszlo Landscaping to put holiday lights on the train station and encourage businesses to do the same with their storefronts or buildings. The more businesses that participate, the better. Our aesthetics committee has been busy. Last year, we hired B&B Holiday Decorating to add oversized lighted holiday decorations around town. We'll be bringing those back this year and are planning to add a couple more. The ornament arch will return to Pocket Park for great photo opportunities. We added 6 additional planters to the ones we had placed the previous year, bringing the total of planters to 31. In addition, we ordered 18 new benches to replace ones that were in need of replacement. With all of the items mentioned, we have spent just under $94,000 in aesthetics in the past 12 months. The community is continuing to support our downtown gift certificate program, and we have sold $34,000 in downtown gift certificates since last year. I look forward to continuing to work with everyone to keep downtown Downers Grove the vibrant downtown we all love. Thank you for letting me give you a glimpse into the past 12 months in downtown Downers Grove. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. The presentations don't do those organizations justice. They work all day, every day, all year long on our behalf, and frankly, most of what you see in terms of economic activity, downtown events, are really run by those 2 organizations. They do this community an enormous service, and they work really hard every day. So if you guys get a chance to say thank you, to see them out and about, certainly say so, and make sure you invest in Downers Grove. They're working hard to help you do just that. We will now move on with the rest of the proper agenda. We're going to move on to our active agenda, but before we do, I do have a few things, some comments. Some of these you've heard, some of them are expanded on a little bit, but they have to do with our public comments portion of our meetings. We've had a couple meetings where we've kind of lost sight, I would say, of basic decorum and mutual respect. We're counting on everyone to not let that happen again. The public comments portion of our agenda are important, valued parts of every council meeting. There are provisions in the agenda for such input at each active or first reading agenda item, as well as later on items not specific to an active or first reading agenda topic under public comments portion of our agenda. It's item 10 this time. Beyond tonight's meeting, there are a variety of additional opportunities to engage council members, including our e-remarks system, the CRC system, Coffee with the Council, direct email, or by phone. Every one of your council members spends time in person off this dais, making themselves available to residents and businesses across our community. Those one-on-one conversations are often the most valuable. The comment opportunities tonight are traditional parts of a structured meeting. They offer an opportunity to deliver comments to the council. Please remember, this is not a debate, nor are these question and answer sessions. Applause or heckling is not productive. One of the awkward things you just witnessed here was our proclamations in those 2 presentations. Everybody felt like they wanted to applaud. And you saw sort of a tepid response from the council. That's because what we're trying to avoid is this going on through the balance of the meeting when one person says something they like and they get booed, or someone else says something they like and they get applauded. That really distracts from the meeting, and it makes it hard for us to keep going through. What we're trying to do up here more than anything is listen. We really want to listen, and when there's applause and heckling, it makes that really hard. So whether it be for something said from the dais or a comment delivered to the council, let's try and control that. Your council is listening. We're taking notes. and we're considering what's said. Often, and rightly, I would suggest, some time is needed to reflect on the comments that are presented to us. The same should be expected of everyone in the room. Importantly, the opportunity to address the council is not an opportunity to name call. It's not an opportunity to accuse others, either on the dais or in the audience or at home, of ill will, or one to debate one another. If we can't follow the rules, if we can't exhibit a little decorum, a little respect for each other, and a little respect for the process, then we'll have to find a way to stop the meeting. If you plan to speak, please do keep the following in mind. Please state your name for the record. Address your comments to me as the chair of the meeting. Keep comments to 5 meeting minutes or less. Avoid repeating what others have already said. Please keep your comments to 1 visit to the podium per subject. And remember that comments are most effective when they focus on subjects within the scope of Downers Grove Village governance. Finally, it's a lot of talking from the mayor. If you forget to mention something or an additional thought comes into your mind because of something someone else said, hold that. Hold that to a later meeting, send it to us in an email, find us afterwards, let us know what's on your mind. We do want to hear it, but we also want to make sure everybody gets through the evening and gets their chance at the microphone. So with that, we'll move on to item 7, our active agenda. Is there a motion concerning Plan Unit Development 31?
Mayor, I move that the council adopt an ordinance approving an amendment to Plan Unit Development Number 31 to add multifamily residential as an allowed use as presented.
Second.
Any audience comments or questions on this item? Council comments or questions? Greg, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I missed the last meeting, and I appreciate the comments that came from my colleagues and the public on this last first reading. I just thought I'd take a second to weigh in. I'm going to vote in favor of it, although I can't say that I'm entirely thrilled about it. I'm still not yet convinced that multifamily is the right way to go in this area. It's largely, Class A office space, a couple of hotels, things of that nature. And I'm not completely convinced that multifamily fits the mix that's there. That said, I think amending the PUD to potentially permit that use to take place is a good step and allows us to at least further consider that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Greg. Importantly, just as a follow-up to Greg's comments, it also is specific to this PUD. So it is a kind of a one-off evaluation opportunity. Any other comments from the council or questions? Rose, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Glover?
Aye.
Commissioner Gilmartin?
Aye.
Commissioner Colavani?
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski Fugit? Aye. Mayor Barnett?
Aye. That motion passes unanimously. Is there a motion concerning a contract with Era Valdiva Contractors?
Mayor, I move that the council authorize the execution of a contract for the Downers Drive Water Tower Rehabilitation Project, WP-019, to Era Valdivia Contractors, Inc., in the amount of $2,612,540, plus a 2% contingency in the amount of $52,251, for a total not to exceed of $2,664,791 as presented.
Second.
Any comments or questions from the audience on this item? Comments or questions from the council? Rosa, please call the roll.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Glover?
Aye.
Commissioner Gilmartin?
Aye.
Commissioner Colavani?
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski Fugit?
Aye.
Mayor Barnett?
Aye. That motion passes unanimously as well. With that, we are on to our first reading portion of our meeting. This is item 8 on the agenda. This is the portion of the meeting where we will discuss items, sometimes for a first time, sometimes for a second or third or fourth, but items on which we do not plan to take official action tonight. With that, I'll turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor Barnett. There are 3 items on tonight's first reading agenda, really 2 topics. The first topic is continued reinvestment and redevelopment at the 75th and Lamont. And here to present background information on this petition is our Community Development Director, Stan Popovich.
Thank you, Mayor Jaffielman. Good evening, Mayor and council members. As Dave mentioned, this is a planned unit development amendment with a special use and a platted subdivision for the shopping center 7251 to 7261 Lamont Road. The project's at the northeast corner of 75th and Lamont, here circled. We see the entire shopping center here outlined in red. More particularly, we're going to go up a little bit on the north side of that shopping center into this area here. We're going to zoom in a little bit more. As you can see the site here, you can see existing traffic patterns. So there's an existing entrance between the Burger King on the south and the Three Corners restaurant there on the north side. And you see the existing traffic patterns around the site. What the petitioner is proposing to do is construct a new building at this location, again showing the existing traffic within the shopping center not changing, and then create a drive aisle through in front of the building there, with a drive-through going around the building from the south to the north and ultimately a little bit to the west there as well. And then the other important feature here is a pedestrian connection out to Lamont Road along that main entry drive there as well. This is a sketch of the proposed facades that will be on the proposed development. It's currently shown as a 2-unit retail building at this location. And with this sketch shows the existing property lines. So there's a platted subdivision at this location proposed. It does have an exception. There is no frontage that's proposed with this development. Access to this development will be provided through cross-access easements throughout the shopping center and the entrances, so that these people in development at this location will have access throughout the shopping center just like anyone else does. The comprehensive plan notes that this is a corridor commercial development to serve neighborhood residents and the regional residents. The proposal beautifies the centers, provides shared parking, and does provide an important pedestrian connection to those that might be walking along Lamont Road. The Plan Commission found that the standards for a planned unit development, special use, the subdivision, and the exception standards were met as well. I'm happy to answer any questions that the Mayor and Council might have tonight for me, as well as Jason with PMAT. The ownership group is here as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Stan. Any questions or comments from the audience on this item? Please come on down to the microphone and tell us what's on your mind.
Linda Schranz. The question I have is, was there any consideration by this person or the group to actually consider building across the street? Because it seems to me that this area here, I live very close by, is getting pretty crowded. What with the Panera going in and a couple of other things, the revised Burger King, and there's a whole lot more room right across the street. So just wondering if that was ever considered. Thank you.
Any other comments from the audience? Okay, comments or questions from the council? Rich, please.
I can't recall, is there a stop sign now where the pedestrian crossing will be?
Commissioner, within the site or outside?
Within the site.
Corner? Yeah, I believe there's a stop sign for the traffic that, not that's coming in, but that's going across that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I did it.
Chris, please.
Do we know, is this building being built for businesses that have asked them to build it, or is this just like a spec unit that they're hoping to fill?
If we could have the petitioner come up, I think he might be able to answer
Okay,
that question
great.
for you. Thank you.
Is that okay?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Jason Riebert with Gulf States Construction Services. Work with the PMAT Group, owners of the Downers Park Plaza Shopping Center. To answer your question, it is a speculative endeavor at this point. We do not have any end users identified. Leasing efforts are well underway at this point, but at this point we do not have any sole source or tenants identified at this present time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Leslie, please.
Yeah, just one. I know we kind of had some of the specs of what the facade might look like. Where are those kind of entrances related to where you put those up, just as it relates to the parking lot? So are people going to have to go towards kind of the front end there to enter, or do we think that the entrances are going to be positioned towards the parking lot?
The front elevation at the upper left is going to face the entrance. So that is where the arrow is, and so that'll be the glass.
Okay.
That'll be facing out towards Lamont Road. The left elevation will be the drive-through lane, which will be the north elevation. And then the right elevation will be facing south.
Okay.
And then it looks like the rear elevation will be facing towards the east, towards the shopping center itself.
So will there be pedestrian connections then to kind of get around from the parking lot, or
Yes, so.
like if they have to park, you know what I mean, kind of?
So as proposed, there's not any pedestrian connections internally to the rest of the shopping center. Within the parking area for here, there's a sidewalk. I'm going to go over this way. There's a sidewalk that runs this way and along this way to catch traffic in this location.
Do we anticipate that that'll be enough parking that people won't have to kind of overflow into the larger lot?
The parking as proposed meets the requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Any other council questions? All right, I've got one, Stan, this doesn't have to be necessarily answered right now, but as I look at this, one of the things that kind of jumps out at me is that south elevation is very much sort of the back end of a building at that point. And we do have all these other outlots, and there also is almost a road through the development. And so I just wonder whether or not we should be trying to look for ways to, I don't know, solidify, formalize, I don't know what the right choice of words is, but that road. The issue is this pedestrian access thing. I think others have, it's sort of on their minds too. And we've got the obvious access, you know, from Dunham. That makes sense. But if we were trying to have this whole PUD service the whole community around it, you'd be trying to find ways to encourage pedestrian access from the north and from the east. And that right now is, you know, just surfing your way across a parking lot, and then crossing what sort of feels like it might be kind of a road. So I guess I'd like to hear some more thoughts on how, if there's any consideration of that, if people would entertain some ideas about trying to make that a little cleaner understanding for pedestrians. It wouldn't surprise me, this is my non-developer crystal ball, right? I shouldn't probably try and operate that, but the idea of outlots on these big PUD strip shopping centers, I think makes a lot of sense from sort of a usability standpoint. I keep throwing this word around inappropriately, but commercial node. Dave's going to laugh at me over there. But in my mind, it would be great if this would sort of continue. And if it did, then this pedestrian access thing becomes a bigger and bigger issue. So I'd just like to hear some more thoughts on that, and it doesn't have to be knee-jerk tonight, but that's definitely on my mind.
Okay, we can talk to the petitioner as well about that.
Okay. Other comments or questions? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I share that.
Rich, sorry. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I share that concern, and I kind of wonder if there is any possibilities of feasibility, I should say, of changing the design based on which tenants might go in there, and if could there possibly be more glass on either side, or is this going to be the final thing that final design that's getting approved here? Because the driveway to the east is definitely a road when you look at it and you go through that lot. And as we know, people are driving really fast on any roads. So I think we need to be careful about that. See if we can address that with
Just to suggest that if the council has any comments or concerns about the elevations, now would be the time to address it.
Okay.
Not this moment, but in this approval process. I mean, because once it's approved, they will have that entitlement. So we can put that on the list to talk to the petitioner as well.
Yeah, I guess in order, I'm more concerned about protected crosswalks from the parking lot connecting to this building. As far as, you know, you have to have a back to the building. I think the petitioner's done a nice job taking the design elements all the way around the building. I mean, that shows through in the design.
All right. Got some ideas and thoughts to come back with?
I appreciate your comments, and we will work with the petitioner on those comments.
All right, be sure to follow up on this conversation next meeting as well.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members.
The final item on tonight's first reading agenda is consideration of an ordinance authorizing an amendment to multifamily housing revenue bonds. This ordinance allows the developer of the supportive living facility located on Lacey Road to refinance bonds that were issued in 2014 so they can achieve a fixed interest rate. As was the case when these housing bonds were issued in 2014, there is no financial impact to the village whatsoever. We're happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Thanks, Dave. Any comments or questions from the audience on this item? Comments or questions from the council? Rich, please.
So as I understand it, their current loan is a variable rate, and just fix it as a lower rate?
Yes, that is our understanding.
So it's just helping a supportive living facility in our village?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That ends our first reading tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Item 9, Attorney's Report.
Thank you, Mayor. Only 2 items to present tonight. The first is an ordinance approving an amendment to Plan Unit Development Number 18 to permit the construction of a restaurant with a drive-through in a retail building at 7251 and 7261 Lamont Road, and an ordinance authorizing the amendment to the Series 2014 bonds regarding the Illinois multi-housing revenue bonds for the supportive living facility at Lacey Road. That's all. They will both be on next week's agenda.
Thank you, Enzo. As we come to public comments, item 10, as a reminder, our next agenda item is an opportunity to address comments to the council on any other agenda items not covered by the first reading or active agenda. So with that, if there's anybody that would like to address the council, please come on down to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Noel Manley, and I am the co-chair of Awake Downers Grove, a peaceful organization dedicated to the education and protection of all children. Now, the United States is a country filled with systemic love, kindness, and fairness. And Downers Grove is a village filled with systemic love, kindness, and fairness. I want to follow up on Mayor Barnett's note here about civil discourse and using this forum in the proper way. It was brought to my attention that a series of publicly available social media posts were published by Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit smearing my organization. Please stop lying about my organization. Now, Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit, I don't know you, but you seem like a decent person. However, why would a decent person lie about my organization? I understand that we do not agree on several issues. However, this disagreement does not mean we hate you or hate anyone. It simply means disagreement. We're going to advocate for our issues, and you can advocate for yours. I reached out to you last week by phone to engage you on this unproductive vitriol instead of a civil discourse. Now, to be clear, I do not hate anyone. I was raised in the Catholic tradition that teaches you to love your neighbor as yourself. This teaching was reinforced by my 8 years in the Catholic seminary, where I worked in some of the poorest places on earth, including Chicago's soup kitchens and managing homeless shelters. I can assure you I do not hate, and I do not associate with anyone who hates. So it's unclear to me what the standard you hold for hate is. There was an unhinged envelope sent to the DuPage County building this week, or several weeks ago actually. It was determined by the sheriff's investigators not to be credible. And quite frankly, this matter did not even pass the sniff test. It had the makings of a Jussie Smollett type hoax. Now I can assure you, I've also received threatening letters. In fact, I filed a complaint or filed a report with the Darien Police Department, and happily, they identified the person who did it. So, to people in law enforcement in this room, I would suggest that you contact the detectives unit at the Darien Police Department, and maybe they can connect the dots, if possible. So, Where does this leave us? We had a situation last year where we had a person at the Waukesha Christmas Parade kill 6 people with his automobile and injuring dozens others. And we had a person here in DuPage County, a Mary Lemansky, former associate and former Democrat Party social media director, who praised this criminal act and who perpetuated this heinous act, calling it karma and retribution for a trial result that she did not agree with. This was clearly a hateful act, but silence. I guess the level of hate does not rise to the level of a smear attack. So where does this leave us? We respectfully ask that you dial back your rhetoric. Of course, if past history is any indication of future performance, I suspect you will not. However, it's interesting to know that each time you do attack us, you create a new ad that we will be using. It literally writes itself. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Bob Kolek. I've been a resident of Downers Grove for about 5 decades now. The Wall Street Journal on September 30th published a speech that was recently given by Senior Judge Lauren Silberman of the U.S. District Court, U.S. Court of Appeals of the D.C. Circuit. The speech had to do with, Judge Silberman's speech had to do with free speech being the fundamental American value. I happened to be reading Judge Silberman's speech at the same time as the Suburban Life article about the latest threat made by the Downers Grove, made to the Downers Grove Public Library. I think that act was one that clearly deserves everybody's condemnation. That Suburban Life article, however, included interesting and, I might add, disturbing quotes from both Commissioners Jose and Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Especially when juxtaposed against Judge Silberman's speech. It also referenced comments made by Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit in Facebook. Each of Commissioners Jose and Sadowski-Fugit used the opportunity to conflate the recent threat to the library with the comments made at the Village Council's September 6th meeting, and to term those comments as hate speech. Commissioner Jose said that the council chamber was filled with hateful, anti-inclusive rhetoric regarding the drag bingo event. Still further, Commissioner Jose stated, "This is the most abhorrent, vile, disgusting display I've seen in my community in nearly a decade of public life." Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit's Facebook page is filled with similar condemnations of what was said at the September council meeting as hate speech. There's no need to go into the additional detail. People can view that on her Facebook website. I found her claims to be intemperate at best. Surprisingly, she made a personalized attack on an organization. She called Awake Illinois an anti-family, anti-equality hate group. While I commend both Commissioners Jose and Sadowski-Fugit's desire to protect those they believe to be vulnerable and or victims, what I saw at the September council meeting was concerned citizens who were generally averse to the drag queen event occurring on public property. Some, whether for religious reasons or otherwise, just believed that the drag queen event targeting children 12 to 17 years of age was simply inappropriate. All who spoke were respectful of the LGBTQ community. One implicit theme was to question whether the event was the best way of providing the desired messaging to the target youth. And people generally thought that the library and the village council had failed the Downers Grove community in not failing to think through or seeking better alternatives to something as lurid as a drag queen performing for children. Shannon Adcock, as I understand, because I was there, an Awake spokesperson, did address the trustees of the Downers Grove Public Library. Her comments were straightforward and neither threatening nor hateful, because Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit's attacks on Awake, Illinois, I went and looked at the Awake website. I could find no comments that could be remotely offensive, hateful, or threatening. Yes, there was political speech, and at times forceful speech, but nothing that crossed any line of civility. Turning back to Judge Silberman's speech, he notes that the First Amendment's guarantee of free speech is not just a legal doctrine. It represents the most fundamental value in American democracy. He continued that a national commitment to uninhibited political speech is a crucial aspect of our country's culture. It is the penumbra around the First Amendment, which by itself only prohibits government control of speech. Unless all American institutions are committed to free political speech, he said, I fear the strain on the First Amendment's guarantees will be unbearable.
Yeah, wrap it up. Wrap it up.
I'll conclude by just suggesting that each of you get a copy of Judge Silberman's speech and read it. It's significant. It displays the true meaning of understanding tolerance and its relationship to the First Amendment. Thank you.
My name is Preston Straub. I've been here many times. I was here a couple of weeks ago. I brought some paperwork that I wanted the council to look at. I have some other paperwork, but I wanted to start by saying, responding to your comments regarding public comments. Is it your intention to diminish public comments? Is that what you're trying to do? Or you only want comments to what's on your agenda? We can't say anything else about what's going on in town? Did I understand that correctly?
You did not.
Sorry. I misunderstood it. Okay, so then I'm free to say what I want.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry. It sounded to me like, but that's me. I take things straight. The mayor made some comments last time I was here, which I didn't agree with, and they're in your minutes. I don't at all agree with what he said. I don't appreciate the fact that after he said them, I didn't get a chance for rebuttal. I feel like this issue is misunderstood. I don't feel like the council is getting the true picture of what's going on here. And so for that reason, I brought from 2019 copies for the council members of my visit to this podium, whereby I made public comments regarding the village's codes and how they should work, and they don't work that way. And as a result, our issues have been kind of pushed to the side. The comments were made that we would get to maybe interact with the assistant village manager. That didn't happen. The only thing that's happened in our matter is we have been prosecuted by your legal people and now fined, and now trying to collect them fines, and still our issues have never been addressed by anyone in the village with the procedures that I see. The International Fire Code says that there is a route for appeal. You, having home rule, have tightened that up and said, well, if you want to appeal, you do it our way through our appeals board. In this literature I'm giving you tonight, you openly admit there is no appeals board and hasn't been one in years. So we really haven't had the opportunity to try to interact with anyone at the village regarding our issues, which we feel violate not only our Fourth Amendment rights, but also violate both sides of the 14th Amendment. Okay? So that's why I'm here tonight. I don't want to be long-winded. I don't know where I'm at time-wise. But if I brought 7 copies, and I've underlined the items that I've referred to as I spoke here, and hopefully you can see them and maybe possibly tell me how there is a procedure or a way to have somebody in this village address this issue rather than keeping it under the rug, so to speak. I don't mean that to be derogatory, but that's certainly been the way that it has seemed to have gone. Thank you. That's all I have to say. Have a good night.
Others?
Good evening, Mayor and the Council. My name's Ed Briner. Just a couple follow-up things to talk about the Downers Grove Library, drag queen event, and the threats. We're happy to hear that the latest reported threat, which was mailed to DuPage County, not the library, was found non-credible, and the case has been closed by the DuPage Sheriff's Office. We, as parents in Downers Grove, we consider all threats serious and unacceptable. Though we oppose and still oppose the drag queen show in the Downers Grove Library and the taxpayer-supported facility, it's because we as parents care about our children and consider drag queen shows adult entertainment, inappropriate for 12-year-old kids. The Downers Grove community agreed, and this is why the drag queen show was canceled. And this has not been made clear to the community. It's more about the threats, but again, they're non-credible. Because of this cancellation, many Downers Grove residents have been brutally and falsely accused of being anti-LGBTQ, bigots, racists, haters, homophobic, anti-gay, all the words that the radical left throw at us, including people from the Downers Grove Library on their board, various council members, and you know who you are up there. These attacks should stop. Please know that we have no problem with the LGBTQ events in Downers Grove. For example, the Downers Grove Pride Month in June. An entire month, absolutely no problems from anybody in the community. The Downers Grove community should be updated, Mayor Bob. We'd like you to update the community, make them aware that these threats have all been investigated and deemed non-credible, not a one, and that half the community are not bigots and haters, and that the LGBTQ community or anyone in Downers Grove shouldn't feel unwelcomed or threatened in our community.
Good evening. Mary O'Dowd, resident of Darien. Thank you all for your time and service, and thank you for allowing me to speak. Although I am a resident of Darien, I frequently visit Downers Grove. I love the library. I love the historic Tivoli Theater, and I really love driving my 1961 Mercury Comet to the Friday night cruise nights. I like cars. In many ways, Downers Grove is a great place, but sadly not in all ways. In a recent Facebook post, a commissioner on this board stated, quote, "Holding office and being a leader in the community should never be about hate or disparaging those whom you do not understand," end quote. I agree. Sadly, in that same post, this elected official made offensive, disparaging, and blatantly untrue references to the group Awake Illinois. In the spirit of peace and understanding, I respectfully ask that this commissioner will reflect on their words and truly come to understand and respect all in the community.
Here, please.
Thank you.
Mary, right here next time.
Pardon me?
Keep focus right here, please.
I was distracted. Pardon me.
Focus. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're not.
Good evening, Mayor Barnett and Village Council members. I'm Carol Jean Davis, and I am a resident of Downers Grove. And as witnessed by these public comments, there's a lot going on in our town on some very hot topic issues, and I wish to take a moment of your time to let you know where I, a constituent and resident of Downers Grove, stand on some of these issues. The first item is the drag queen bingo. Under no circumstances should the library director be fired. I want to be very clear on that. There's been talk of that. This was a program for preteens and teens, not toddlers, and it would have been chaperoned by library staff. It was a bingo game to be done by a female impersonator, and then they were going to sing a Katy Perry song. That's it. Equating a program like that with sexual predation and sexual grooming is absurd. No one should be fired, disciplined, or removed from any position or board over this issue. I am a retired librarian who used to do murder mystery parties for the junior high kids at the Lyle Library for grades 6 through 8. Do people think that I was grooming teens to be murderers? So now I want to talk about some qualities to look for in a library board member, since you will be appointing a library board member as well soon. As a retired librarian with over 30 years' experience at 4 very different public libraries in the Chicago suburbs, some of them serving very diverse populations, I want to offer some valuable and succinct qualities to look for in a member of a library board, and I will email them to you after this meeting. Number 1 is that they are actual library users and that they have been for a long time. Number 2 is that they are level-headed and intelligent. They don't overreact, they don't underreact. Preferably, they are a person who has effectively dealt with controversy and has experience in conflict resolution. That they have no political affiliations and no hidden agendas and no political aspirations. That they have a true desire to serve the public, even those they disagree with. And number 5, that they support DEI, public libraries, and public schools. That they understand those terms and institutions, including their history and how they work together for the common good. The last item I want to address, because it can't often get to these meetings, is prohibiting the sale of assault-style weapons, because I know you'll be working on your long-range plan. No one has a need for this style of weapon. It is a fact that they are weapons of choice in random mass shootings. And I'm not going to reiterate a litany of statistics, but I will tell you that I belong to a nonpartisan group that has been researching this for a very long time, and I am also old enough to remember a national assault weapons ban that passed with bipartisan support in the 1990s. And when that ban sunsetted in 2004, mass shootings dramatically increased and continue to increase with no end in sight. Individual municipalities banning the sale would send a clear message that most people want the sale of these weapons stopped. It would reinforce that most people want increased gun control, similar to what we had in this country. It is my hope that if municipalities and eventually states stop the sale and possession of these weapons, the national ban would be reinstated. I have nothing against the ownership or marksmen or markswomen or those that engage in traditional gun collecting, target practice, and hunting. And I know many of people who engage in those activities. But people who adore assault weapons and high magazine capacity rifles are another story altogether and need to be treated as such. It is also true that existing laws need to be better enforced. There is a lot that we need to be doing on that subject. Banning the sale of assault weapons in our community is just one of the many broken spokes in the very broken wheel of public safety, and it's time to be leaders and start fixing it. So thank you for your time tonight.
Hi, my name is James Kelly. I'm in the process of occupying an office at 515 Ogden Avenue. In the meantime, for the last 3 years, I've been working out of 10401 Roberts Road, Palos Hills. Recently, it came to my attention that I forgot something that I almost was able to do a couple of years ago with Mr. Baker's help and Mayor Bob's help. Juanita, which is All Around Amusements, offered me a carnival. There's a carnival date that was canceled. It's available for the 13th, 14th of October. Mr. Baker was going to be emailing me what we need to fill out. I'm looking to do this. My board members of my non-for-profit and my registered agent for my publishing company, Mr. Unger, told me that if I want to do this, forget about my non-for-profit and make a public announcement that if we can pull this off and do a pop-up carnival at Fairview train station, which is in need of some attention, because the other day I was there on Thursday and Friday, and there was maybe like 10 cars there. If we could do this, what I'm offering it through my publishing company and the All Around Amusements is the profits go to the first 7 non-for-profits associated with Downers Grove. I talked to Mr. Elliott. He's one of them. If anybody wants my contact number, it's jfkjrone@gmail.com. My phone number is 708-577-8956. And I'm also kind of excited tonight because I'm counting my dinosaur days and will be totally internet within the next 2 weeks for the publishing company and for the non-for-profit. And it only took me 3 years. But, I was resentful. But, it works out that way. Mr. Jose could understand that, and Chris could understand that, considering they both are great with internet. So, like I said, if anybody's interested, Mr. Baker, I talked to him before the meeting. He's going to forward the information. I hope, if any suggestions, city council meeting, or anybody in the audience knows a good charity, local charity, that wants some money, all the money's going to be distributed through my accounting office, which is, of course, my office that I've been using for the last 3 years in Palos Hills. Have a nice evening. Thank you very much, and it's wonderful to be part of Downers Grove.
Good evening, thank you. I'm Laura Temple. I'm a 28-year resident of Downers Grove. Thank you, Mayor Barnett and members of the council. Mr. Mayor, as you consider the next appointee to the library board, I would like the next library board appointee to be someone who loves our library, someone who understands that our library is at the heart of this community and that our library is an essential component of why Downers Grove is such a great place to live. I would like this person to be supportive of the current staff and the current executive director. I would like this person to be supportive of the goals and principles that are in their own strategic plan, and to be aligned with the values outlined in the Mayor's June 2022 Pride Month proclamation. I would also like to speak about the long-range plan. I'd like to lift up 3 elements of that long-range plan priority action items and offer my support for these 3 in particular. 1, prohibiting the sale of assault-style weapons and large-capacity magazines within Downers Grove. According to Johns Hopkins University, in 2020, more children ages 1 through 18 were killed by firearms than died from any other cause. If we truly care about vulnerable children, then we must work to eliminate the things that are real threats. Assault-style weapons is a great place to start. The Complete Streets Plan, helping make streets safer, especially for pedestrians and bikers, many of whom would be children. Yes, please. And the Private Tree Preservation Plan. It's never too late to start, and we know the importance of trees, how important trees are to a village with Grove in its name. Thank you.
Others, subjects not on tonight's active or first reading agendas. Okay, we will continue with our meeting then. For the mayor's report tonight, there is a couple of things. One is we do have a resolution appointing and reappointing members to boards and commissions. Rosa, could you please read that?
Resolution appointing and reappointing members to village boards and commissions. Whereas Mayor Barnett has made the following appointments to village boards and commissions. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village Council of the Village of Downers Grove does hereby confirm the following appointments. Community Events Commission. Reappoint Michael Pouzin to a 3-year term expiring August 31st, 2025. Appoint Jessica Bisdell and Taylor Summers to 2-year terms expiring August 31st, 2024. Environmental Concerns Commission. Reappoint Liz Peloso as chair to a 2-year term expiring August 31st, 2024. Fire Pension Board. Reappoint Jeff Kuchta and appoint Tim Nash to 3-year terms expiring August 31st, 2025. Historic Preservation and Design Review Board. Reappoint Don Renner and Liz Chalberg to 3-year terms expiring August 31st, 2025. Appoint Alicia Cufini Kemp to a 3-year term expiring August 31st, 2025. Liquor Commission. Appoint Amy Castry to a 3-year term expiring August 31st, 2025. Appoint Bill Fenton to a 1-year term expiring August 31st, 2023. Plan Commission. Appoint Catherine Frankovic to a 3-year term expiring August 31st, 2025. And Stormwater and Floodplain Oversight Committee. Appoint Catherine Reichert to a 3-year term expiring August 31st, 2025. Appoint Scott Bobo to a 1-year term expiring August 31st, 2023, and appoint Will Wicklander as chair.
Thank you, Rosa. Is there a motion to adopt that resolution?
Mayor, I move that the council adopt the resolution as presented.
Second.
Any comments from my colleagues? Well, I just want to thank everybody for participating again and helping carry the load of sorting through who these candidates are and who they ought to be, and I appreciate that. To all those that serve, it is a real treat. It's a treat for the village to have your willingness to serve, and I know sometimes you see the same and encounter the same frustrations that we see up here. Things don't go the way you'd hoped. People disagree with you. People complain that your board or commission didn't do what they'd hoped. But it is governance, and it is important, and we really appreciate everybody's volunteering to be part of their community. So, Rose, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Glover?
Aye.
Commissioner Gilmartin?
Aye.
Commissioner Culvaney?
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit?
Aye.
Mayor Barnett?
Aye. That motion passes unanimously. Before we get on to council member reports, I just had one thing I wanted to comment on. It's a little boring considering some of the subjects that have been before us, but it is a big part of what we do. You saw or heard discussed a couple of PUD amendments. What those are is a reflection of why we have an EDC and why we have a downtown management, and a big part of the role your village plays in our day in and day out lives, and it is how property is used in our community. We have rules, we have zoning ordinances, we have PUD agreements, and the truth is things change. Time goes on. And what we're trying to do is try and work with people to ensure that that property that they own and they operate, hopefully to everybody's benefit, continues to be vibrant and vital and an active part of our community and appealing to others. Every day, businesses fail, people retire, people move to Florida, they decide they don't want to do this anymore. And the same is true with residents. You all know somebody who left your community for retirement or a different way of life, or maybe they just wanted a beach. Keeping those properties vibrant and appealing to the next round of folks that are considering Downers Grove is important. And so it sounded a little dry and sounded a little boring, and you'll hear more about both of those things, but they are a pretty big deal in the everyday use and vitality of our community. So thank you all for indulging in that. With that, we have council member reports. This is an opportunity for council members to weigh in on goings-on in our community or subjects that they think others should know about. We'll start with Nicole.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to preface what I'm going to say by saying that these are not, my comments are not directed toward any individuals that are here tonight. These are pre-written comments, though do speak to some things that we've been experiencing in recent weeks in the village. In recent weeks, people have claimed the threats made against our Downers Grove Public Library were false, untrue, made up. On Thursday, September 29th, the Downers Grove Police Department released photographs of a threat to our library in response to a FOIA request. Enclosed was also a rifle round, a bullet, a threat to take someone's life or many lives of people that live in our own community, the community that I love so much, as many of you know by now. A threat is a threat, whether it is believed to be credible or not. This is my opinion. Either way you slice it, it's a crime, and we must treat it as such. We all have different points of view, different political beliefs, different religious beliefs, and I respect that. Every single person that has come up to this podium this week and in past weeks has had my attention while you spoke. If you and I do not share the same view, the same beliefs, it's truly okay. What is not okay is for the lives of people in or at the library to be threatened. There is not a single reason ever that makes violence or violent sentiments okay. Credible or not, it's appalling. I would love to know if the individual or individuals that sent that letter work with teenagers who this event was geared toward, because I do on a daily basis. I have had at least one student who is connected with the LGBTQ plus community every single year I've been teaching, and this is my 16th year. Does anyone remember how difficult those teenage years were without questioning your identity or your sexuality? If you don't, let me remind you that they were hard enough. If they weren't tough for you, you're one of the lucky ones. Our kids are dealing with things that many of us did not have to growing up. Would you want your own children or family members, the people you love the most in this world, to be threatened or harmed in any way because your family had different beliefs or a different lifestyle than another group? I simply cannot fathom this, whether the threat was credible or not. I want my family and community to feel safe living in the town I love so much. I want my kids to be accepting and kind to every single person they come across And I want them to witness that same kindness and acceptance all around them by all members of this community. This town has so much to offer. Intolerance and unkindness is a learned behavior that can spread through generations. It is not something we are born with. It is taught. Make sure it stops with you and your children, please. We can do better. We must do better. Love and kindness are never wasted. Never. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Leslie?
Yeah, I just want to thank EQDG, an organization with which I volunteer, for their leadership on supporting our LGBTQ youth and the greater LGBTQ community to feel as though they're loved and belong here. And I hope that that community will feel safe again soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Rich?
No report this week, Mayor.
Greg?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to start by thanking Commissioner Wallace for her well-written and strong words. I'd also like to thank the resident who read from my Facebook post. I hadn't planned on reading it tonight, so thank you. I stand by every word of it. The threats that were made to the library, other threats that have been made to staff at the library, other aggressive actions taken against staff at the library, are the most vile and abhorrent things that I've seen in a decade of public life. I stand by that. I should have said all of this last month. I support inclusive programming at the library. And I don't understand why anybody wouldn't. If you talk to any teenager these days, you find that there are a lot of kids that are at risk. And a lot of the LGBTQ plus community is a part of that. I call on the Downers Grove Public Library to schedule more inclusive programming and to do it soon. I'd like to also touch on the First Amendment since it was brought up earlier tonight. Public forums, taxpayer-provided forums, are here for the taxpayers and the public. That's all the taxpayers and all the public. That includes folks in the LGBTQ plus community that pay taxes right here in Downers Grove. Use the library right here in Downers Grove. And the ability to express your opinion and express whether it's political or entertainment or what have you is something that is precious, but it goes both ways. What we saw at the last at the September 6th Village Council meeting and at the Library Board meeting was an attempt to suppress speech. It was an attempt to suppress the drag bingo event that was scheduled. That event, just like the speech that takes place here at our podium or the speech that takes place up on this dais, is protected by the First Amendment. You may not like it, but it is. And the only way you can be sure that you can say what you want is to make sure that somebody who disagrees with you and is espousing something that would make your blood boil can say what they want. So the First Amendment is intended to protect against government censorship of speech by asking whether it be the library board or this body to take action against that drag bingo event. You are asking us to censor speech. That is improper under the First Amendment. You can shake your head all you want, but my JD backs me up. In summary, the First Amendment is a beautiful thing. It protects all of us, whether you're in the majority or the minority. It protects the LGBTQ community just as it protects Awake Illinois. And those taxpayer resources are available for use by the LGBT community, and appropriately so. And I hope that the Downers Grove Public Library will schedule additional inclusive programming for them, as well as they have for the rest of the community, very soon. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Chris?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I said my piece last meeting on the drag queen bingo matter, so I don't want to repeat myself. If you didn't get a chance to see that, I suggest you take a look at that. I'll just say this: I was heartbroken that the event had to be canceled, but I understand in the light of such a serious threat, the safety of our residents come first. And while extremely disappointed, I think that this has brought a lot to the surface, and I'm a big believer that sunshine is a great disinfectant. Thank you, Mayor. Oh, one more thing. I want to invite everybody to the bike repair station dedication that's happening this Saturday, October 8th. It's going to come after coffee with the council. The bike repair station was donated by the Downers Grove Bicycle Club. It will be installed by Downers Grove Public Works Department, and the event will be happening at 10 o'clock on Saturday, October 8th, north side of the tracks by the bicycle parking just east of Main. All are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Danny?
No report, Mayor. Thank you. I just also want to thank Nicole for her strong comments. I also agree with every word and stand behind those comments as well. Can't say it any better. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. The last item on our agenda tonight is a manager's report, where we're going to talk about some long-range planning items. We're going to do that next door, and we are going to take about 5 minutes to gather ourselves and move over there. I don't want to tell anybody they can't come, but if everybody in the room goes, we might have to come back over here. So we'll just see what that looks like in a few minutes. You're all welcome. We'll be continuing in the committee room next door. You want to introduce anything?
Sure, Mayor. Tonight we do plan on wrapping up our update to the 2021 to 2023 long-range plan with a discussion, as the mayor said, about our council priority action items. The current long-range plan was approved by the council in September of 21. It identifies and addresses issues affecting our long-term future, and it establishes the village's goals and priority action items that guide annual budgets, daily operations, and the delivery of services. The council is in the process of updating the entire plan, not just the priority action items that we're talking about tonight. And you may recall we did have meetings in June, July, and August. Regarding the priority action items, they serve as the council's work plan until April of 2023. The plan that's already been approved consists of 10 action items that are shown on the whiteboard in the Gantt chart style. You can tell by looking where that blue line is representing today's date that the village is currently working on 5 of those 10 items. 4 have been completed, and 1 item was tabled by the council in December. The council started the review of the priority action item updates on August 16th actually, and at that meeting 7 potential action items were identified. 4 of them, listed on the right side of the board here on the black ink, are under consideration with the current work plan. And 3 of them are best suited for the discussion of the next council, which is seated 2023 to 2025, and those are shown in purple on the whiteboard. To help with this discussion tonight, staff did prepare and publish short summaries of each of the 7 proposed action items. And we thought it would be helpful tonight to frame up the council policy discussion with a couple of key questions that could be used. The first, which of the proposed priority action items would the council like to include in our current work plan? And for those that will still be considered after that question, the second question is a simple, when should we include them? When, meaning between now and April of next year. And with that introduction, Mayor, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So everybody has gotten a chance to read through this, I assume, and there's clarity, I think, at this point on what these things mean, what the scope of the work is. I think the question before us now, Dave laid it out there, which ones we like to include. And I think, from my conversations with colleagues and public, I think probably the answer to that is all of them. And so I think maybe a finer point to this conversation is which things on that list do we think we should do between now and April. Most of the time, historically, when we've done these check-ins, they have been sort of updates, meaning, do we want to take anything off? Is there anything that we should put out and extend? They typically are not adders because we got a window here. We have a window of 6 months that includes a budget, it includes a levy, it includes 2 holidays, and it includes an election. And so historically, the decisions at this point have always been, should we not finish anything, or should we put something beyond April? The other thing to remember is that any of these things, I don't want to get too far down the road here, but if you look at our history as a village, one of the challenges that we always are faced with, and I think we do a reasonably decent job of doing, is trying to get 7 council members plus the public understanding what the question before us is. I remember a conversation about chickens, and it was, one of the phrases that was used was, can we find a way to bring the public along in the decision, right? And that's the point, forget about chickens versus any other thing. The question is, can we bring the public along in a decision? And so that's the question for us tonight. Are any of these things we think we should be doing in the next 6 months? Or are all of these things we think should remain on our list of stuff to do when we establish a new council and a 2-year work plan? So with that, anybody want to start a conversation? Greg?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to start by apologizing to my colleagues and the staff for being at least part of the delay for why we're talking about this today rather than last month. But I appreciate the mayor's framing on this, because in 9+ years, I don't think I've seen an update of a long-range plan that includes adding something to what's going on. And especially at this late date. I mean, we've got a check-in that is traditionally a check-in. It's an update. It's here's what's going on. And we've got a pretty limited window between now and the next council taking its seat. And I feel the ticking clock as much as anybody, is I'm hitting a term limit in a couple of years. So one way or another, it's not going to be me in this seat come 2025. But I really sympathize with everybody who wants to take these things on, because I agree with most of them, if not almost all of them, and I want to see us tackle them. I just don't think now's the right time to start. I think we should complete the actions that we can under our current plan, understanding that some of them will continue on into the next council. Obviously, it takes a little time to build the new civic center, things like that. But I think we should begin to tackle what to do with these potential priority action items, starting with the first couple of meetings in May. It's a no on everything.
Anyone else jump in? Leslie?
Yeah, I mean, either whether now or May, we're going to be busy. So I think instead of continuing to kick the can down the road on a lot of these items, as we've been doing for years, I think it's about time that we get started on some things. So I would be in favor of discussing the private tree preservation regulations, prohibiting the commercial sale of semi-automatic weapons and large magazines, and the complete streets plan. In fact, I actually just talked with a young family who lives about a block from the library last night. And they were just flabbergasted at the speed by which people, operate Main Street and those areas. They were shocked that we hadn't, dropped the speed limit in the downtown, that we don't have a particularly bike or pedestrian-friendly downtown. They've been almost hit 3 times with their 6-month-olds while walking downtown because people are just not paying attention. And so I think we need to move forward with this so that we can continue to make it safer for pedestrians and bicyclists. So I think all of these things are absolutely doable, and I would be in favor of, if we needed to add an FTE for any of these, doing so. But I don't see the benefit of waiting for May versus getting a start on those now. Yeah. Thank you.
What were your thoughts on the first one?
That one, I know we talked a little bit about, I'd be interested once we kind of potentially get an application to start having those conversations, but right now, if we don't have one, I'm fine holding off on that one.
And that would be any application for any of the qualifying veteran and fraternity organizations that would qualify under the current state law, and staff will monitor to see if any of those organizations apply to the state process.
Correct.
Others? Danny?
Yeah, I guess I would just split the difference between what Greg and Leslie have already stated. As far as video gaming, I am aware that there are a couple establishments that are starting the application process. I don't know if they have actually submitted an application to the state, but I just guess I don't see the reason for waiting. But if we're going to wait until they do it anyway, it's going to happen regardless. It's just whether we want to collect the revenue for it. So I would say I would rather get started on it now versus waiting. As far as private tree preservations, I'm a no. And I think we should wait for the state for some guidance from the state on prohibiting the sale of semi-automatic weapons. Hopefully we get some clarity out of there. And then, yeah, I don't see any reason to wait on the Complete Streets plan, get a head start on that, and start making some headway.
The waiting for state action, it's our understanding that the General Assembly may be taking up in their next session similar discussions on that topic.
Right.
May.
Rich?
Yeah, I don't see video gaming as rising to a priority action item because it shouldn't take us 6 months and, multiple staff. I think it'd be pretty easy to craft an ordinance, so I would propose that would be a normal course of business that comes up. If it comes up in this council, I'm fine with it.
So it started as this, and it's already spent 4 months on it, so it would really be an untabling.
Yeah, okay. And then, because I do anticipate that the fraternal organizations will want it, and that gives us an opportunity to regulate it. And if we pass it up, then it's up to the state. So I think if we put our 2 cents in it, then we'll be able to model it for Downers Grove. Regarding private...
So I just want to make sure I didn't know what to put.
I think it's an asterisk as well.
Got it.
And actually, no to being a PAI, but perhaps yes to being a regular business item. Private tree preservation, I'm in favor of that. I think we've done a lot of work on it already. We also had the 2005 ordinance that we could look at, so I believe we could do that successfully. On the prohibition of semi-automatic weapons and large magazines, I share Commissioner Glover's desire to see what the General Assembly comes out with in January. The other concern I have is it's come to my understanding that Naperville was sued shortly thereafter in preparing theirs. The public should know, the residents should know that if we have to defend a lawsuit, we go all the way to the Supreme Court with it. We had a case with Leibenguth regarding supporting our sign ordinance, and we did go that far. And the cost of litigation was $329,000, which is a significant amount of money. So I think we're going to have to rely on the state because I don't think it makes sense for us to knock into a hornet's nest that's going to bring litigation that's going to be very expensive. And I'm sure will be fought on both sides. Complete streets plan, though I like the idea of it, as I drive down major thoroughfares like Maple Avenue, and if we had to do 2 separate lanes and 2 separate bike lanes and the proper separation, then we're going to have to go into the Parkway. And this just happens to be one example, but there's a lot of trees that might have to come down on Maple Avenue in order to do that. So I'm going to say I'm generally in agreement to try to get more people to ride bicycles, but for this particular PAI, I'm going to vote no.
I'll go next.
Go ahead, Chris.
Great. So I also think the video gaming is not a PA. I think it's can be untabled, and we can talk about that. I completely agree with you, Rich. I think that's a good approach. We've done a ton of discussion on it. While this is a little different angle based on what we might potentially allow, I think that can be done without being a PAI.
Okay, so just to be clear, for staff direction, forget what we label it. If you'd like us to work on video gaming, if you'd like us to put it on an agenda, the answer for this purpose, I think would be helpful to be a yes. And if you don't want to have it untabled, then come back off. That would be a no. So I just want to maybe go back to Rich, make sure staff is understanding.
Well, is staff recommending that we wait until there's an application?
Yeah.
So that could be an action the council would want to take.
I think that probably makes more sense, and if no one applies, then, you know, it's kind of a, the sleeves out of our vest, and I wouldn't want to expend time on it if no one's applying for it.
Sorry, because I didn't want to catch
That's
up. So I
okay.
just wanted to make sure that was
I agree with Commissioner Koveany. I think that's the same sense that I have.
okay.
Private tree preservation, I fully support. I think we have an opportunity there to balance some things there, so I'm good there. On the prohibited commercial sale of semi-automatic weapons, I'm a yes. While I appreciate the idea that the state is taking this into consideration, you know, I love staff's reference to the sale, ban on sale of puppies. I know it sounds sort of trite, but we didn't wait for the state on that, and then it took 3 or 4 years for the state to finally make that statewide, and I can't help but think that the actions that communities like ours took had an influence on it. So, all for that. I don't think it's any surprise that Complete Streets is something I'm very, very, very interested in. Surprised it didn't come with a pre-filled Y there for me. But I also just want to make sure that this is framed in the right way. I totally respect and understand the idea of what we're thinking about bike lanes and cutting into trees. It's not that. It's that where it's possible. But there's lots of other elements to Complete Streets, way more than I can speak to. And I would love the opportunity for this council to move forward on understanding what that is, understanding what the option is. You know, this initially came out of my desire to see us and our village and be able to be far more traversable by non-motorized means of transportation. But the reality of it is that we have some limitations, but we don't actually know. We had a bike plan in 2013 that made a lot of recommendations and I think set somewhat of a maybe a spark, but I don't really think we have a good handle on what we can be. And then as I've learned more and understand about folks who have trouble with speeding and all the things that have come before us that we struggle with, we look at Prairie and all the decisions we had to make there, I think we can make it easier on ourselves and future councils having more of a defined plan, and of course staff, and having a more defined way to view these things. I agree with the recommendation on it being flexible. I'm not looking to start bulldozing trees, but I think it's important for us as a community to value that, because there's a whole slew of reasons, which I've given you all many times, why that should be, you know, something we really value. So with that, I'll say I'm a yes.
All right, I'll go next, my last, aside from the mayor. All right, so I'm an asterisk for the first one. And this next part is tough for me because my colleagues are so passionate about what they're passionate about, and I really, truly respect that. However, as I was reading through this, and I was thinking back to our prior council a few years back and how, what a rousing discussion / debate we had between doing ERP and the Civic Center simultaneously. And there was everybody was like, staff can do it. Some people were like, it's a ton of work. And I think we agreed, yeah, it's a huge ton of work, but we're going to ask staff to do this. And so while I respect that decision, my mind also goes back to that rousing discussion of how much work that was going to be. And while we made the decision to do it, I want to be respectful of the fact that those are two really big projects going on, and we've still got some other current priority action items that are ongoing, in progress. And so for me right now, I'm a no down the rest of them. With an asterisk, Dave, on that one. Yep, I would like to, I would like to see what the state, oh, I'm sorry, not asterisk, your little carrots.
Yeah,
yes, thank you, sorry. Getting my symbols wrong. I want to see what the state does. I know there's a pending lawsuit in Naperville. That's, that concerns me a little bit, but obviously that's an important discussion in my mind, but I kind of want to take a wait and see approach. And then a no for complete streets. Chris, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to crush you, Commissioner Gilmartin. It's an awesome, I hope it comes back up at some other point in time. But for me, I think this is a doable work plan and a smart work plan for everyone involved here. Thank you, Dave.
Mayor, can I make a slight addition to my comments?
Sure.
I know we're not talking specifically about the social services gap, but the League of Women Voters brought our attention to a community mental health board, and Dave, you and I talked about that. I know that townships typically take that up, so I think it's important for Heather Lippy to interface with that organization, and then also the township and other organizations that provide mental health services.
Absolutely. Good timing. This will, their report from the Human Services Commission will likely be on an agenda later this month, probably the last meeting of the month, so good timing.
Anything else? All right, so my ideas on this are probably tipped off by my intro comments. I think all of these things should be on the list, and I don't think we should be doing any of them in the next 6 months. I think there's a host of reasons. I don't want to get into gaming. We've seen what gaming means. I don't want to get into it unless somebody appeals us for it. Private tree ordinance, there is no way that happens without an enormous amount of public input and a lot of public meetings to get people thinking they understand it. I assure you that. The commercial sale of automatic weapons, large magazines, I don't know why. I mean, I appreciate the idea of leadership and the idea that maybe it's like a puppy ordinance, but the state is, both parties have indicated through their legislative members that work on our behalf that they're going to take this up. That's one thing. The second thing is Naperville is going to find out what their road forward looks like after the first of the year. I don't want to be a guinea pig on that. I just don't. I think the state's going to probably do the right thing. I think the state's going to make an adjustment to the law, and I think they're going to minimize what goes on. And we're all going to get benefit from that. The Complete Streets Plan, all due respect, Chris, you and I have gone around and around. What's in here talks specifically about laying out plans for all our street sections. And all I can reflect on is the sidewalk by the school and the street center medians over on Prairie, and the questions about Main Street. And what the truth of the matter is every council that's been in this community for 20-plus years has actually not done that, with the exception of the sidewalks. Every other issue, whether it's Claremont or it's Carpenter or whatever, they have basically said, we would like the residents in that neighborhood to influence our decisions. And that's exactly what this council did on Forest. It's exactly what this council did on Prairie. So the idea that we would spend the time and the energy it takes to lay out a plan for all of our street segments, potential design considerations for all of our street segments, only to have the next sidewalk opportunity by an elementary school, which seems like a no-brainer, be resisted by a bunch of neighbors, doesn't seem like a good thing to me. And the ideas, the goals of trying to get improved pedestrian transit throughout our community, I don't know, nobody's going to argue with that. Everybody's going to think that's a good idea. Every single person, even the parents who came out and said they don't want sidewalks on their street. Everybody's going to think that's a good idea. So I don't think that the idea of developing a plan ahead of time is reasonable. Fairview area subplan, those other three things, again, I think everybody thinks we probably should be talking about those in depth, but not in 6 months. So I'm solidly a no on all those things because the window of time we're talking about is right now. Remember too, guys, it feels like, well, if not now, when are we kicking the can? Yeah, I guess we're kicking the can. We're saying that what's historically a check-in, we're not going to adjust the sales, and we're saying that we realize these are all big investments in time, big investments in energy. That's what we're saying. It's not the same as saying we're kicking the can. I guess, there used to be a council member who used to love to use the word flip-flop a lot. Terminology means something, and I suspect all of these things have merit that everybody here would like to get into in depth, but we're going to have stuff come up to us too, whether it's the plan that Rich was talking about for the Human Services Commission or it's the next Forest Avenue. How many things in the last 2 years that we've all been working together have come to us, consumed enormous amounts of time, and we had nothing to do with bringing them forward? You can't have zero capacity. And then the last thing is, as Nicole was talking, this ERP and facilities, it's a little bit of an iceberg, guys. We're past it. We all did a lot of work, a lot of planning, and we all feel like it's done. And it's not. I mean, Dave's desk was literally moving across the floor today. It's a daily thing for them to have 4, 5, 6 meetings on various subjects, and that's going to continue for at least the next 6 months, probably more like 12. So it's, when we say just prepare something, just prepare the ordinance for video gaming, that's pretty easy. Sure. Cosenza's sitting there doing nothing tomorrow. I mean, there's a very real element here there's a ton of work going on that doesn't affect us right now and doesn't feel like work because of that, but it's real. So I'd like this board to not go away. Somebody take a picture of it, make sure we're all talking about it, but I don't want to change anything in the next 6 months.
So, based on the conversation, the staff takeaway in terms of long-range planning would be to confirm that we are continuing with the 5 that are in progress. And video gaming actually becomes placed on an agenda once staff is aware that any one of the qualifying organizations in our town makes an application to the state. Right? So that would be the change here. This would actually be sort of we will take that as direction, we'll just monitor, and if it happens, then we'll place it on an agenda. So I guess it is somewhere between a priority action item and a business item, so it would be contingent there.
It's like mulching, we're just going to stick it in the middle.
I want to comment on that too, not on the ordinance, but again, the framing up of what does this really mean. So that feels a little bit like, well, we'll just monitor the state's website, and when we see one of these organizations that's in our community has made application, we'll whip out the ordinance. Does anybody sit here think that that's going to be the limit of the public conversation when we bring forward a change to allow gaming? Really? I don't. You can run down the list of people we're going to hear from, and it'll be in front of us wanting to talk about the whole thing. And we can stand there and say we're not getting into it, or we can say we are into it. So I think it's a bigger deal than just a few words in an ordinance line. It usually is for us. I'm sorry.
I got a quick question. So it'll take about 3 months once for us to draft up an ordinance and to get approval or consideration by the council. Is that correct? For that to happen? No?
So the draft in the ordinance based on this item as described,
Mhm.
it's a very narrow ordinance, and we could draft that as a staff very quickly. Staff, when we put together a Gantt chart, we try to make an estimate based on our experience about how long consideration of an item would take. So what we try to represent there is what Mayor Barnett was talking about. We suspect that placing of that agenda item on our council agenda may not be quick in terms of the number of council meetings. It could if you come in within a month. But we just put 3 months on there because we thought based on experience that makes some sense, allows for any kind of continuation of first readings, that kind of stuff. So it could be faster or it could be longer depending on, because that ultimately rests with the elected officials. Did I capture that?
That's true of a lot of these things. Even the assault weapon ordinance. I mean, I'm not going to diminish that, but we could rip off Naperville pretty easily. That's not the hard part. The hard part is engaging the public and bringing the community along and whatever it is, and that's just not fast. That's the issue. It's lots of hours of prep, and it's lots of hours of time. It's just an enormous amount of time. I'm done.
Well, I would like to.
Yeah,
So, with all due respect, Mayor, I can appreciate the idea of trying to be respectful of our staff's time. The idea of doing nothing is certainly not what I would characterize what would happen if we do none of these. I think when I hear things like there are things that are going to come at us and that we're going to have to deal with, totally agree, but it feels very sort of reactionary. So we're going to be focusing on all the things that come at us and not focusing on the things that we want. I struggle with that a little bit. If that's as a council and we're thinking about what the next 6 months look like, doesn't feel like we're looking forward. Feels like we're waiting for what's coming, and I can just say personally that just doesn't sit well with me. If the idea as a council for us to wait and say we want to do all these things and then not do them, it feels a little bit passive, if I may. And I think if the one thing we're getting out of this is to untable gaming, it doesn't feel to me like we're moving the village forward.
It might be another way of characterizing that would not say that we're going to wait, but rather we're going to finish. What we're talking about here is a plan that we all agreed on was going to take us through April of '23. Everyone
Yeah.
here was in on this plan and thought this amount of work was going to take us through April of '23.
Yeah.
A couple of months ago, when we thought we should check in and get a status update, we all had ideas. I suspect if we do this again in December, we'll have 7 more ideas. It's not a matter of saying we're going to wait. It's a matter of saying we're going to finish. That's what it is. I mean, you obviously see it differently than
Yeah,
I do.
I do.
Would certainly
Yeah.
characterize it that way because the idea of a high priority action item in a work plan is that we have 7 different people here who are going to constantly come up with ideas. Constantly.
Mhm.
That's why we have the 4-hour rule. And so there's a certain amount of work that we believe we can accomplish. We believed we could accomplish this work plan by April. That's what we believed, and we all still believe that. The question we're just asking is not should we wait, or do we care, or are we trying to kick the can, or are we not looking forward? The question we're asking is do we think we've got the time and the resources, both there and here, to add to the plan, to extend the plan, and to bring up new stuff? And that's what there's obviously disagreement
Yeah.
on. But we're finishing the plan.
Do we not, as a council, have the purview to add those resources?
Absolutely. Yep, sure we could. Leslie?
Yeah, I mean, I'm of a little bit of the same mindset, and like I said earlier, I would be in favor of adding, a consultant or an FTE if that's kind of what would be required of it. To me, if we take some of these issues on, it helps us anticipate some of those reactionary things that might come up. So, sure, we get, neighborhood folks who want to come to us and say, I want X, Y, and Z. Well, in Forest Avenue, we didn't give the residents what they wanted because they wanted a speed bump. We voted not to do that. So we're not always voting on behalf of exactly what the residents want, but we also have the benefit of having staff and consultants and their expertise to tell us, based on what they understand of, say, the Complete Streets Plan, the traffic patterns and what type of a road it is and how people interact with it. They know better than the residents do of how all of that is interconnected. And so I think it only benefits us to have these larger overarching plans so that we can kind of show folks, this is the rationale, and so when you impact X, Y, and Z are going to be impacted as well. And that's what we try and do when we do this neighborhood to neighborhood. But I think it would behoove us to do things like a private tree preservation regulation where we, can say in advance, these are the expectations that we have when somebody is going to build on a Longfellow property, or this is the expectation we have when somebody comes forward with those plans, or this is the expectation we have when a potential semi-automatic weapons seller wants to come into town because it's being prohibited in other local municipalities. These are the things that we're prioritizing, as Commissioner Gilmartin said, to move us forward. And so I think if we can start our work on this, then we can at least anticipate some of those things that are going to be thrown at us and make us a little bit less reactionary for some of the things that we've kind of been seeing increasing over the last few years of the issues that folks are bringing to us. A lot of them have been related to safety, whether it be, some of the hate and the violence that we're starting to kind of see on the rise, whether it be safety in terms of folks walking down the street, or whether it be people upset about trees being taken down. It feels like a lot of the things that we have been seeing as a council over the last at least 3 years that I've been on here could benefit by taking some of these things on. So that's why I would at least argue for those, and would argue that even just adding a consultant and adding to the budget could potentially be worth our time in the short run, so that we could have some of these plans implemented, so we could actually have some guidelines for folks when they come to us and say, there's a reason why we did this and we planned this way, and this is the process that we took. So that would just be what I would argue, but, I'm outnumbered.
Thank you, Mayor. Especially when you talk about the private tree preservation regulations and the complete streets plan, these are items that, if they're properly considered, can and should, and I believe would, take much longer than 6 months. They would potentially take a good couple of years. I mean, with the complete streets plan, we're talking about, really, we ought to have neighborhood meetings all over the place. And that, I don't even want to begin to estimate what the staff commitment in terms of time and resources would be for that. And what about 8 months from now, more than half of us might be gone. And the folks that are sitting in these chairs might decide that that's a really bad idea to go down a private tree preservation ordinance or a complete streets plan and completely change course. And then we've spent how much money on consultants and et cetera, et cetera. When we have a plan that we're fairly close to completing, except for, obviously the ERP and the Civic Center are going to continue to be issues that we're working on. We should wait until we've got some additional stability, if you ask me, before embarking on something that's going to take a significant amount of time, a significant amount of feedback. I mean, as we all sit here, we might say, hey, yeah, let's do a private tree preservation ordinance. But the community is going to have an awful lot to say about that. And if we, go down the road of some communities that just, okay, let's do a first reading and let's do a active agenda and bang, we're done, we're going to get an awful lot of feedback on that. And that's not really the way we've done things. I mean, I can criticize the number of times we've gone down the road of the facilities project before we finally got it done. But we got it done right. And Bob's reference to the chicken ordinance, my wife still brings up the great chicken debate of 2012, 2013. And we can occasionally overprocess things, but there is a certain amount of community feedback that when it comes to something like this, where you're changing the private property expectations of folks, whether it's through saying you can or can't cut that tree down, you are about to give up some of your, what you consider to be your front yard so that we can widen out the street to put in bike lanes or put in sidewalks, whatever it might be. These are huge deals for our friends and neighbors, and they're going to take a long time and a lot of consideration, and this just isn't the right time to start it. And come May, we may go down the road of parking lot. We may go down the road of complete streets. I gotta start thinking before I talk. We may go down the road of private tree preservation ordinances. But I do know this, we're gonna have a lot of things fall off. And come 2024, 2025, we're gonna have two incredibly large projects fall off. And at that point, you're gonna have a lot more capacity to take on things like the Fairview Avenue implementation, or fleet relocation, or complete streets, or private tree preservation ordinance. I've said it privately, I haven't said it in front of the microphone, but getting the facilities done and getting ERP done, those are the two things that are going to take up a huge amount of resources for a certain amount of time, but then they allow us to do a whole lot else afterward, because we've gotten two massive things off of our plates. And it's good that we got them done. And they are incredible drains on our resources right now.
That we argued about
That
even
we
doing
argued
at
about.
the same time.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
you're
people
absolutely
argued against that, saying it was way, way, way too much.
I like a lot of these ideas. I just don't think now's the right time, because they are going to be, many, many month to multi-year projects. Rich?
Yeah, I do have to make an editorial comment about ERP. Some of you may know that I was actually in that industry for literally decades in various leadership positions. Now, we didn't sell our products to governments, but we did sell it to manufacturing companies and distributors, and what we know about it is that it really consumes an entire organization. Like, the evaluations typically take a year. It's tough to win that business. You have to do a lot of work. The staff of those organizations had to really decide what practices they wanted to keep, what practices they wanted to discard, come up with a whole long laundry list of things that would like to be added, and that all took people, and typically committees of people that would collect information from their teams and then go to the steering committee and come back with a report. So that was all during the evaluation. And then it's sort of like building a house. You do your planning up front, and you have your architectural things. You pick the builder, and now you have to build it. And in this case, it's like building a house around you, because we have to live in it at the same time, and that does consume an extreme amount of time. It literally changes an organization. That for that period of time when that's being done. And people not only have to do their regular jobs, because that doesn't stop, they have to do this other thing, and that usually means just extra time, overtime and things like that. And what we counsel people is that the people on the team who are taking that leadership position, they should end up with some perk as a result of it, perhaps even a promotion, because they were doing their regular job and then over above. However, I do have to disagree with you on the private tree preservation plan. It's going to, in my view, very much like the landmarking ordinance, where it's voluntary, where all we're asking is to meet with the forester before we clear cut an entire lot, like happened on Fairview about probably 2 months ago, and where they're taking down every tree with no consideration, and perhaps the forester could have said, all those trees around the perimeter, they'll be fine, and you'll be able to sell a wooded lot. We understand you're not going to take down the tree, that you have to take down the trees within the building footprint, and you can't put trees close to it. But I find it difficult to believe that a voluntary thing to do, as long as we're educating the contractors. And unfortunately, we have this problem in Downers Grove where they're wiping out the grove one lot at a time, because they come in and clear cut. We have no defense against that. And it changes the look of those neighborhoods. When I was canvassing and doing other things with the Historical Society and other groups, I noticed that the south side of town is now taking over the tree canopy that the north side of town had for many years because of wiping those out. So I just find it difficult that if we go forward with a voluntary thing and they can say, no, those are my trees and I'm going to cut them down, we really have no recourse. We're not forcing people to do anything. We're just trying to educate them in advance that, do this for your own lot and the value that it brings, and then bring it to your neighborhood and our entire village.
Yeah, if I could again, on the tree thing, I think we were also thinking about it from the context of somebody's lot and the trees that are on their lot, but we haven't, and we're not, I don't think, here to debate a tree ordinance tonight, but just the context of whether or not it's important. We talk about some of those boundary trees, where yes, if I own a property and I'm digging around a tree of my neighbor, I think there should be something more than just a recommendation or a, so I think the tree ordinance goes beyond, and I understand, and I appreciate you characterizing it as voluntary, because that's sort of how I saw the examples that we were given, and totally agree with that. But I think there is something to the boundary trees that hasn't been addressed and should be. And I would just also go back to the idea of the capacity. Let's not forget, we have diminished our staff by 78 people in the last 15 years. So the councils before us and the staff before us have removed bandwidth bit by bit by bit. So there's a reason that these projects take up all of our staff. It's because we've basically tried to be as lean as we can be. And I own a business. I understand that principle. But I also understand moving things forward. And I also understand there are some things that are important. And I'm certainly not trying to convince any of you all other than to say it's a problem if we've got 2 projects going for 4 years and that's all we can do. It's a problem.
Yeah, I'd completely disagree with you, Chris.
Yeah.
We have 2 projects going that are projects this organization's never undertaken and probably won't ever again, that literally involve every member of the organization. Not one of these other items, not on this list or on this list or on a list passed, or that kind of a scope, not one. And the reason it's 4 years instead of 2 years, you might remember a thing called COVID. We stopped doing a lot of work. Do we have less staff? Of course we do. But the thing we're talking about for time here is not writing an ordinance. It is not writing a private tree ordinance or figuring out gaming or copying Naperville. That's not it. It is none of those things are going to get, you're going to hire an FTE and just have it done, and they'll do them tomorrow. That's easy. None of those things are you going to hire a consultant to do what? Go out and have the neighborhood meetings and figure out who decides what should be mandatory and what should be voluntary and what's the definition of a boundary? Those are the things we're talking about. It's the preparation for inclusion of the community, the bringing the community along piece. None of those things. Complete streets, no offense. And you could get a complete streets plan together probably by the end of October. Now what? Are we going to make it ordinance? Are we going to make it ordinance? That's the question. That's not a staff bandwidth thing. It is because they have to help us prep, and then we have to work through all those meetings, and we have to recap the meetings, and then we have to pull all the information together and make adjustments. Yes. But the issue here is that the 2 biggest or projects this organization has ever taken on are going on together. And to Greg's point, when they're done, they're done. One of the reasons they were so hard to get through is because they consumed us, whether it was the staff of 15 years ago or the staff of 2 years ago. They were all consuming of the organization. And that's a big part of why they were in the way.
So it is bandwidth or it isn't bandwidth?
Well, hang on.
Yeah, it is. And if, you know, I mean, you just said you're a business owner. If you were to change your entire system and at the same time be in charge of building your own building, might your clients suffer a little bit? Could you just hire somebody and say, jump in and do that stuff?
I would if I knew it was important to the growth of the business.
Okay.
I'd just like to object to the idea that we're only doing 2 things. I mean, we're also taking on DEI practices, social services referrals. We've got a CAP report coming later this month. We've implemented body-worn cameras, the license plate readers, downtown outdoor dining. The solid waste contract got done pretty darn quick, and we caught a break there in getting that done the way we did. There's more than just 2 things going on. Can we take on necessarily everything we want to do all at once? No. But that's life.
It was a decision 2 years ago, guys. In 2021, when this body and these people sitting here decided on this work plan, this same group of people could have said, let's add some people. Right? We didn't do that. We chose this plan. We believed we could get through it, and we believed it made sense.
It might be appropriate for us just, as a staff, just jump in and say, here's what we're hearing. We're hearing to continue with the projects that are identified and underway, and we'll monitor video gaming. And when somebody makes an application that qualifies under state, we'll immediately put that forward as described in this document, and we'll continue to monitor the General Assembly and report out on that. So if that's the direction we're hearing, that's the direction we're seeking, but I just want to make sure, Mayor, that we didn't cut anybody off.
Yeah, and that's the point. Obviously, we're going a little bit in a circle here, but that's part of what we do when we have these meetings like this. So I agree with your assessment, Dave. If anybody sees anything different, let's clear that up. Does that everybody see at least the data on the board the same way? So that is sort of. But I've said more than my piece. Anybody else want to jump in?
Members of the public.
Well, one more comment about the private tree ordinance. The boundary tree is an issue where a developer will destroy someone else's tree, perhaps inadvertently. We already have the regulations in place about root pruning when putting in a new sidewalk or a new street, so that's the easy thing to do. If you have a mature tree and you root prune, that tree has feeder roots that go out in all directions and a great capacity to regrow. There may be shock for 1 year, for one season. The leaves may drop earlier, but nature has a way of taking care of that. So that's all I got to say on private trees.
Anyone else on the council? We do have a couple of guests. If anybody has something they want to add to the conversation, please try and go the same rules. We're not going to debate everything, but we certainly want to hear from you. So tell us who you are and what's on your mind.
Linda Schramms. And as I'm hearing this, it reminds me a lot of the past. I've been a resident of Downers Grove for about 38 years, and it reminds me of the past when, we're going to do the Civic Center. Now's not the right time. Can't do it now. It's going to cost too much. Kept kicking it down the road, and now finally, after I've been a resident for 38 years, it's actually going to happen. And that's kind of how I'm feeling listening to this conversation here. There's never a right time for anything. There's better times, there's good times, there's bad times, whatever. But I think, as Commissioner Gilmartin and Leslie Sadowski-Fugit were saying, we have to get started. You can't just sit back and wait until the timing is right. I happen to be a very strong proponent of most of these things here. Having read about the complete street, I was just blown away by what could happen. I had been an invalid handicapped for about 6 months. I couldn't walk without a walker. And it made such a difference in my life to see how difficult it is for people to navigate this downtown streets if you have a walker. It just, and so reading about the complete streets and how it's really trying to accommodate people of all sorts, it spoke to me. And so that's just how I'm feeling hearing this conversation.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Susan Lawrence. I'm a mother of 3 in Downers Grove. I have a child at Whittier, Herrick, and North. And I'm also the co-founder of MAVENS, which stands for Mothers Against Violence in Schools. We were founded in 2016 after one of the upteenth school shootings, when I started to feel like I cannot sit and wait for it to come to Downers Grove. I cannot wait to react to a school shooting. I have to do something to try to prevent it. We are founded with 3 principles. Number 1, if we teach children to be kind and empathetic and inclusive, hopefully they don't feel the need to bring a weapon into school and take up their frustrations and sadness out on their classmates. So we're the group that has put in buddy benches in all of the elementary schools and have taught our children through our own assemblies on how to be on the lookout for friends who don't have friends, and how to prevent bullying, and how to prevent that feeling of, I've got no one, I have no reason to live, I'm going to do something violent in their schools. Our second pillar is a see something, say something. We teach our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders how to properly report threats of violence to their teachers, to their classmates, to their parents, so that hopefully any act of potential violence can be prevented before it occurs. And finally, our third pillar is parent education. What to do when your child comes home and says, Mom, I was told to run in a serpentine style out of my classroom, so if a man with a gun is shooting, we're not in a straight line. How do you answer that question to a kindergartner? So we've put out a lot of publications with area principals on how to answer those after you've done those drills. So that is who we are and when we came into existence. That doesn't answer the question of why we're necessary. We're necessary because no one else is doing anything. People only want to act after the school shooting has taken place. And then it's real popular and exciting to say we are instituting a ban on the sale of commercial and semi-automatic and automatic weapons in our areas. I, for the life of me, don't understand how we're having the same conversation with trees. Why we need to wait to react to when the state does something, if the state does something. Why we're so afraid of a lawsuit. Respectfully, if it was $300,000 to get to the Supreme Court and I'm an attorney, it's going to be pittance to defend a lawsuit at the county level. The fact that we would be afraid of a lawsuit and that would prevent us from selling an ordinance to our public that would be wildly popular. And yes, there will be adversaries. There's no question about it. I will commit to being the public liaison if that's what it takes, to bring the people along to get the support that you all need. And finally, our village needs to hear from you all that you are here to support us and not wait till after the village, or excuse me, the library has decided not to have a bingo event to voice your frustrations and disappointment. Get in front of these issues. Tell us that we want a safe community. Tell us that we support Highland Park and that we don't want it to be in our community. Tell us that we don't want people to come to our area to set up their shops because they've been boxed out of all the other communities. Tell the General Assembly, see it happens in Downers Grove and it works. You should feel the support and the willingness to do that at the state level. Let's not wait 6 months. Let's not wait till there's a shooting in Downers Grove to then feel justified in our action. And then organizations like mine, I'm not an educator, I am not an elected official, I'm a mother, and organizations like mine aren't as important when our elected officials are doing what they need to do to protect us.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else want to continue the conversation tonight?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all. Good night.